The terminally ill are forced to suffer through diseases taking away their lives. Legalizing assisted suicide gives them a choice. Lindsay Holden, in her article on the Tribune, discusses a woman named Christine Whaley. Christine had a tumor growing from the side of her head, and another growing from the side of her neck. This tumor in her neck would eventually grow to block her airways, and she would die from suffocation. Christine Whaley, shown in this picture, chose assisted suicide. She did not want to die an awful, painful death of suffocation because of her tumors, so she opted for a peaceful death and died on her own terms. This topic is important because so many people are dying without their control, and they're dying in pain. I know people myself who have died in painful diseases, which led to my research on assisted suicide. Assisted suicide needs to be legalized so patients have a decision that they can make. To die on their own terms or to die in pain. Today I will be discussing what assisted suicide is, showing an example of assisted suicide, and why action needs to be taken to legalize it. Assisted suicide involves patients requesting a prescription for medication from their doctors that will inevitably end their lives. According to Dr. Grube, in his article, 10 Facts About Medical Aid in Dying, people who request a method for assisted suicide typically are suffering and feel as if they have no control over their inevitable death. They want to feel like they have a choice that they can make, to suffer or to not suffer. People assume patients who choose to die are simply depressed. However, this is not usually the case. According to Dr. Grube, by law, patients choosing assisted suicide have to be screened for mental illnesses that could inhibit their ability to make such a decision, because choosing to end your life is a final decision. Once it is made, there is no going back. After you've taken that medication, you will die. And people need to be sure that that is what they want. Many terminally ill patients want the right to choose when and how they are going to die. Alex Dubininsky discusses in her article, California cancer patient 29 moves to Oregon for assisted suicide, a woman who was diagnosed with terminal brain cancer. She lived in California at the time where it was illegal to want assisted suicide. She opted to move to Oregon, the first state to ever legalize assisted suicide, so that when her symptoms of her disease got too painful, she could opt for it. She would take the assisted suicide medication in order to end her life in a way that would not be causing her pain until the very end. She did not want to suffer painfully. During her time left, she used it to raise money for a campaign so that others can have the right to die without having to move from the place they've always called home. Because that is what she had to do. People should not have to suffer and die because of a disease that they did not choose to have. Nobody wants to get sick and suffer painfully. It's out of their control, but this is one thing that they can control if it is legalized. According to Dying with Dignity campaign, only a few states have statutes for assisted suicide. These being California, Colorado, the District of Columbia, Oregon, Vermont, and Washington. In these states, the terminally ill have assisted suicide as an option. This is a map showing which states allow assisted suicide and which states it is illegal in. The blue are the states that I mentioned that are legally allowed to opt for assisted suicide, while the red, it is still illegal. This just goes to show how much of a fight needs to be put up to legalize assisted suicide and to give terminally ill patients a choice. In states that it is not currently illegal, terminally ill patients have only 3 options. They can choose to stop eating and drinking, which would cause more suffering, but inevitably death, sooner. They can refuse treatment or opt for palliative sedation. All of these options would result in suffering either way, until they die. Is that any way to live? Throughout my presentation, I discussed what assisted suicide means, I shared an example of assisted suicide, and I explained why it needs to be legalized. The terminally ill are forced to suffer through their diseases that are taking their lives away. Legalizing assisted suicide can give them the option to end their pain. People are dying every day from diseases that are extremely painful. Shouldn't they get the choice to die peacefully and to not suffer? Thank you for watching.